in a hypothetical scenario, if I was a residential developer and I don't get an MMP in place versus a residential developer who does get an MMP in place for a stockpile of excess topsoil on a project, what are my options if I have an MMP in place, and what are my options versus if I don't have an MMP in place, and how can that affect the outcome of my project?
Well, I suppose that the simple answer is that if you have an MMP in place and you've got a stockpile of topsoil. So I suppose if you're talking about if you've got a surplus, is that like if you've got a surplus of topsoil and you want to do something with it? So yeah, if you have an MMP in place for your site, and you've demonstrated that there is an intention to reuse that surplus material, then that allows you to have already declared that there's a use for that material upon excavation. So you can point and say, look, this material, this stockpile of topsoil is not a waste. It's not a waste because I have, at an early stage, outlined that I'm going to be excavating this material, outlining that it's going to be a surplus, but I don't intend to discard it. I intend to use it on another development site, or send to a soil treatment facility, or upload to a hub. I've got an intent to reuse that material.
Yep.
And that, under the MMP process or the DALCOT process, will say that you don't have a stockpile of waste. You've got a stockpile of a resource, of a material that's ready to go somewhere. And that gives you the freedom to, wherever you want to send it, so long as the receiving site has an MMP, or if it goes to an STF or uploads to a hub, then that you've just got that freedom and flexibility. If you can't find anything for it, then all of a sudden there is the intention to discard, and then it goes away as a waste. But you've got so many more options. If you don't have an MMP in place, or any consideration of what you're going to be doing with the soil, which is one of the number one issues at the moment within the industry, I think, especially for house builders, is that you have a stockpile of waste. If you've got a stockpile of waste that doesn't need any further treatment, and you can't then go in and do an MMP to say, well, now we can reuse this material, because you've got a stockpile of waste, and the MMP is supposed to declare that you haven't got waste in the first place. And it is kind of frustrating. And many years ago, there was a bit of an uproar once it became clear that, because it's called a retrospective declaration, you're trying to retrospectively sort of use this material. And a lot of people sort of saying, well, it's not very sustainable because I've got this material, it's perfectly suitable for use. We just excavated it before we did all this work. And it's just unfortunately the way it works. It's because the regulators, the EA, and Claire correctly, are trying to promote proactivity, not reactivity. And it all comes back to what you guys are pushing, and certainly what we are pushing, trying to educate our clients, is an understanding of the process from day one. From site acquisition, in a way, is understanding what you're going to have on site, what resource you've got, and what you're going to do with it. Because too many times, we are still being called up by clients saying, "Oh, I've got this stockpile that I might be able to reuse. I know I read about an MMP, or I'm speaking to a colleague and they said, oh, you can actually use it under this. Can we get an MMP in place to use this material?" And unfortunately, you can't. It's too difficult unless you've got that documentation outlining that you were intending to reuse that material before it was excavated. And the Code of Practice is quite clear on that.